the Summer Works model has emerged as a pretty good, like, sort of high ambition, low stakes calibration. It's like there's a little bit of like, who cares? Like, what's really going to happen if this doesn't work? You know, who's really going to be hurt by that?
Yeah.
And we feel that way, so we try and encourage people to take big swings.
Welcome back, friends. I'm Kristen Martin, and this is Torches. Today we have the fierce Maria Striar. Maria is a veteran performer and director who co-founded Club Thumb in 1996 and serves as its artistic director. I'm really excited to hear what she has to say. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you, Kristen.
How did you come to be in downtown performance?
Well, I graduated from UCSD. I got an MFA in acting in 1995, and while I enjoyed my brief sojourn in Southern California, that was not the place for me. I'm from the East Coast originally, and moving to New York was, clearly gonna be a better fit for me. And I remember getting into New York with a truck at 3 a.m. and feeling like, okay, it's gonna be okay now. And really quickly, I think.
You drove across country?
I mean, I don't drive.
Oh, okay.
Bound for New York.
Yes.
I don't drive, but yes, I was in a truck. I was an exciting passenger. But I had actually met before through somebody I was dating, David Herskowitz, when I was still in San Diego. One of the first shows I did was actually before I did like 3 shows in a row in Nada. When I first came. I ran into Erin Courtney, who I'd gone to college with at a bank on St. Mark's, on the corner of St. Mark's and 2nd Avenue, the one that's next to Stomp.
Uh-huh.
And
that's now an art gallery?
Or something. Is that what it is?
Uh-huh.
And she said, I've got this play, and Scott Shepherd's going to direct it, and all these people, do you want to be in it? And I said, sure. I mean, I certainly didn't have any plans. And that, I think, was the first of like many shows in a row at Nada. So I guess that's how
Nada
it
was
happened.
like the size of a postage stamp.
Yes, Nada was sort of a basement theater space with a box office revenue split. Very, very many coats of black paint. A tiny little bathroom that audience and actors shared, and a little office, which was where we all changed for the show. My friend Allison used to always say, "No room for magic," because you would basically be like sidling by the audience, waiting in line to go to the bathroom in your costume.
Yeah.
But it was a nutcracker. And so I met the whole target margin community around then. And so sort of bit by bit, and then the next year, after not very long of like being in New York, Meg, with whom I'd gone to both college and graduate school, and I were like, let's put on a play. And we had other friends from grad school who were like, let's put on a play. So we looked around, and there was a place called House of Candles on Stanton.
Also operated by Erin from Nada.
Not at the time.
Not at the time.
At the
okay.
time, it was a company called the Independent Theater Company.
Oh, okay.
And those days, we rented it for $1,000 a week for it was like $4,000 for a month, 24/7 rental, and we just had one little play we wanted to do on an equity showcase contract. We could only do 16 performances, and it was like an hour 10 long. So we kind of invited everybody we'd met in our brief time in New York or gone to school with or whatever to do something, and we ended up having 8 o'clock shows and 10 o'clock shows and sometimes midnight shows, and I think there were at least 5 or 6 different things that kind of went on and went on repeatedly in that
And did you
time.
and Meg act in that one together?
I directed the first play and Meg acted in it. You know, we just came up with a name to put something on the postcard, frankly. And Aaron designed the costumes with me. Boy, I had some great ideas. And also the art. You know, it's like lots of Kathy Perfetta, who's now like, you know, she designed our set, I think. I mean, a lot of people performing in various roles
Yes.
that they don't normally perform in, or they certainly don't anymore. But after we did that, we were like, oh gosh, it feels really great to not wait around for other people to create opportunities for you, and it also felt really great to create opportunities for other people. So that was the first summer works, which we called because there wasn't going to be any other summer works. And same with Club Thumb, we just needed a name on the postcard. And then we just kind of kept doing it, but honing the model. So I acted sometimes I acted in shows for the first few years, and sometimes I acted in other people's shows for the first few years. But as time went on, as the company grew, there stopped being so much room for that. I find it hard to pop. I don't know. I guess some people can produce and act in things at the same time. I found that to be a pretty tricky combination.
Do you miss acting?
I do, to an extent. I get to do a little bit of it, you know, just even in just a one-off way, participating in, like, we develop so much material. And every now and then
I had fun working
reading.
with you as an actor on trade practices many years ago.
Right. I do like doing it. I like to sort of be able to shed, you know, that responsibility, or to pick up different responsibilities. I think it makes me a better artistic director when I do it. But it's hard to claw at the time.
How did you come to Funny, Provocative, and Strange as your mission center for Club Thumb?
Well, the very first play we did was Wally Shawn's Marie and Bruce, which was a play by a living American writer, but not a new play. We were going to keep doing it. We thought, okay, well, what describes the play we just did? That seems to be something we like. That seems to be like a lodestar of sorts for our, you know, communal aesthetic. And so I guess that's been consistent. You know, that those are the plays that really we were drawn to. A lot of things were consistent about that. 90 minutes and under, you know, many parts for women, opportunities for women.
You give artists permission to risk and possibly fail. You talk about that. So how do you encourage risk in the work that you choose to curate?
I mean, I think that the Summer Works model has emerged as a pretty good, like, sort of high ambition, low stakes calibration. It's like there's a little bit of like, who cares? Like, what's really going to happen if this doesn't work? You know, who's really going to be hurt by that?
Yeah.
And we feel that way, so we try and encourage people to take big swings.
Can you share a little more of what that model is for folks who may not know
Oh, sure.
this,
So
the
Summer
festival?
Works is basically the sort of the cornerstone of our producing. At this point, it's evolved over the years, but it's now pretty consistently 3 fully rehearsed, fully staged plays that happen in sequence, but not with no overlap. They're not in rep. There's no rep anything, no rep casting, no rep scenery, no rep. You know, there's some rep cable. And we sort of gently expand to include as many performances as possible, but it's all kind of within a pretty tight, like, it's about a 6-week commitment or so for all the artists involved. So it's like, it's, you know, and it's on a contract. You know, as it's grown, it's sort of it is a more remunerative package, but on the whole, it's sort of built to kind of be like, okay, you can take this time to do this thing. It's not going to like sprawl and dominate your whole life. You know, it's not going to be the only paycheck possibility you have, but it's going to be this dense, you know, hopefully very aesthetically fulfilling experience, and making performance for a community of that's a little bit younger and more dominated by artists with affordable tickets. So it's like it is sort of participating in a really, I think at this point, in a pretty pure version of like why people like to make.
It's about 3 weeks of rehearsal, a week of tech, and 2 weeks of run, like
Yep.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Not a week of tech. Half a week of tech.
Yes.
But a few previews. So I mean, it happens really fast, and that's also part of it. You know, we try and sort of like respect the parameters.
Right.
Try and because we have been doing it for a long time. There's a discouraging people from making choices that will make it difficult for them to land the beast in time. You know, of like having so much tech that they can't tech it, and they won't be able to return to like the whole production and to the acting and to sort of you know, uniting things, and to, you know, try and sort of concentrate on the core elements that they have. We try and give people opportunities to do some advanced staging and, you know, and to sort of develop the work so that they're really ready to, like, you know, get into the rehearsal and tech process, because it's like a greased shoot. It goes very quickly, and you don't, you know, you don't want to have to like be dealing with like, I mean, we've found like things like projections are a little bit of a nightmare in that context. So we discourage them, because it's like you just don't have the apparatus, you don't have the time to like, you know, deal with like really, really finicky tech stuff. So working within your parameters, but being creative about them. And anybody who's been to any summer work shows knows that like inevitably people are going to be like coming down the aisles and like popping out of unexpected places, and there's going to be a sort of a like an embrace of scrappiness, an embrace of like acknowledging what the container is, and that we're all going to try and pour over its edges, but that we are, you know, that we're working in a small theater, and they're like we're all in this one room together.
I'm curious if you feel it is still as low stakes, because you guys have been very successful and gotten a lot of press coverage. And for a lot of artists, this may be the first major press coverage they've gotten. So does it still feel like it's low stakes for folks?
I mean, you know, I'm me and I'm not them. I think that we try to model not caring about, you know, that it's not important to us that something gets good reviews, that it's not important to us that we hit certain goals, that the important thing is that, you know, that we sort of make the strongest thing we have.
Make what you mean to make.
Make what you mean to make. And like our, you know, as an artistic director, once we start to put elements together, my job is to respond to what people are putting down and understand what I understand about, you know, this company and this space and about people, but to like be always working in a complementary fashion in terms of this is going to work, that's not going to work, let's see, I might be wrong, but I wonder, blah, blah, blah. And you know, sometimes what that means is like working really, really hard to relieve anxiety and to de-stress people, and to make it very clear that, you know, what we care about and what we don't care about. I think one of the reasons that I think that it's not too anxiety producing, I hope to produce on the SummerWorks level, is that, you know, we're there all the time. Like it's not like we're such a tiny institution, if we're an institution at all, you know, we're feet away. I'm in every moment of tech, you know, we're there, and we're there to sort of see what's happening, to respond to it, to be in partnership. And so there's not like a great deal of remove from like decisions made at one level and execution on another. And so I think we can be responsive to like things that are coming up, including people's feelings.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes it goes wrong. Sometimes people feel hurt, and that's the worst.
Yeah. What have you learned from failure when it happens?
Sometimes it takes a really long time to learn from certain failures, but I'd rather be a dupe than a shark. is one of the things that that you don't have to give people the answer that they want. That if you have a gut instinct about something, you should keep expressing it, even if people don't listen to you. At least you will have like not sort of swallowed your that impulse in the name of like playing nicely with others.
Yeah.
You know, that usually you end up okay. You know, like it's a long life, hopefully. And being honest and transparent and respectful is kind of the most important thing of all. That bridging those particular values does the most harm.
Can you think of a moment of pure joy in the work that you've done?
I mean, I love tech. I love tech so much. And so I feel like almost every tech, there is like some moment where things come together, and that like sort of fusion of everybody's sort of creative effort and people responding to each other. And you know, when you see like an actor adjust to a lighting cue, like whether they even know it or not, but especially when they know it, you know, I'm trying to locate a really exact moment, but I feel like that happens a great deal. Or in like the sort of production meeting afterwards, when there's something that's just not functioning and people are just like rattling off, like maybe it's this and maybe it's that and let's try this and let's try that, where it's just like, you know, that sort of exhilarating exercise of collective imagination, you know, making something, especially because we do new plays, like something that's never existed before. I mean, even if it's Hamlet, I mean, it's the first time that group of people is making Hamlet, but like when it's really like, who knows, and everything is like fungible, it's like so hopeful.
Well, that collective imagining is one of the strengths of collaboration. What are the other things that for you make a collaboration really work?
I mean, transparency and communication, like everything else. Like, you know, sometimes people are fearful of conflict, and so they won't express opposition or what they really think of an idea or the ways things are going, or they're sort of a little stoic. They don't want to get in trouble, or they don't want to, you know, and that I feel like is just, gosh, if I could just erase that from the way so many people function, just like spit it out. Like, you know, it's not complaining. It's letting people know. It's like nobody know, you know, I can give all kinds of like notes to something, but if I'm barking up the wrong tree and you don't tell me, you're not getting the best of my imagination either. If I don't understand something, so there's only kind of one way of letting people know. So those are sort of, I think, the most important things. I think generosity of spirit. I think collaboration depends on not being sure that you know the outcome, and being excited to discover what that might be. With
The curiosity.
Yeah. And flexibility. Kind of like, and kind of knowing that you don't know. Yeah. I mean, I like the kinds of plays I'm most drawn to are the ones I don't totally understand, but I'm intrigued enough to want to figure it out. And I think that's also part of the, you know, the risk, the way risk functions in our mission. It's like, I don't know if any of these plays work. I have no idea. But I know I'm compelled by something, and I know I'm interested to figure it out, and I know that involves all the collaborators. Like it involves design and direction and a script that's still in motion and actors, and that's and me, and that's exciting. But I don't know that it's going to work, and I don't know how it's going to work, and I don't know if we'll get there on everything, and that makes like the doing of it relevant. You know, that's how you figure it out, and you see how far you get.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, probably more than one path. And if there's only one path, it's probably not a Club Thumb play. I mean, you know, you read things, you're like, that's great. think it's complete in my imagination, and I don't need to figure anything out. Not for me.
Right. Are there aspects of your identity as a woman that inform the way you lead the organization and the work that you guys make?
Well, I mean, it's very important to me to create opportunities for women and to create multiplicitous representations for women. I went to grad school for acting. I was a young actress, but a weirdo. And I didn't really find a lot of things that felt like very exciting. That I was like, woo, I can't wait to inhabit that. And I found myself really often, like, in the context of grad school or wherever, like, trying to, like, be excited about some pretty limited role. This like, kind of like, it's like putting on shoes that are too small for you. And also just, I saw how the proportion in general, like when I was in college, when I was in grad school, where there were just way more opportunities for men, way more just like opportunities to be on stage, let alone to be in something that's interesting. So that's something I feel very deeply about correcting. I work with a lot of women. I work with a lot of men, and I work with a lot of trans people and non-binary people too. But I work with a lot of women. Whether it's because I come from a family of three girls, or something else. It's important to me to make opportunities for women who I think are maybe less hierarchical on the whole about how they collaborate. The gatherers rather than the hunters, maybe.
Well, women are over 50% of the population, so it's appropriate to give them presence.
Yeah.
Your mission is focused largely on emerging artists, also with accessible ticket prices. How do you battle with that when you're trying to compensate people fairly at the same time?
I mean, it's getting more challenging. I think we try to de-emphasize very, very elaborate design, so that we're not spending, an undue share of our budget on things or on the construction of scenic materials, or things or tech that's so complicated that we need like a vast amount. We need, to spend, way longer in the room, or, we're really like sort of going for like maybe I mean, I think that in some ways we have like an imaginative poor theater setup. I like, staging and actors and words and ideas, but I don't, verisimilitude is not really what interests me the most. So in terms of the plays that we pick, we're not usually looking for things with like very, very elaborately detailed, naturalistic, scenic environments. We're also producing in a small space where a little goes a long way. So I think, trying to limit that particular part, which can just get huge. But, it never feels bad to spend money on people. I think, we obviously try to get as much money from, unearned income to support this. I think it's really important to have to the extent that it's humanly possible, to have the price of a ticket not be a barrier to entry. I think that our field is like quite endangered by how expensive and difficult it is to go to attend, and people have plenty of other options for taking in narrative material. So like we have to really make the environments in which we produce as hospitable as humanly possible, whether that is like the vibe or the price, or the information that
Or
we're
all
getting
of the
out there,
above.
all of the above. We have to do all of it, and I think we've done that pretty well. But as we remount things for longer runs, we have to keep sort of reimagining how to do that.
I was going to ask about that. How is the audience different when you bring a show back and you're doing an engagement at another venue,
Right.
And how do the production values change when you go to those other venues? What's the whole trickle down effect?
I mean, it depends. It depends on like how different the space is, how different the scope is, what contractual obligations, if we're doing something in co-production or if we're remounting it in a rented space. But things have to be built to last for more than 2 weeks, which is different. Things have to be designed to adapted if there's a venue change, and sometimes that's significant. Sometimes that's really significant. But we try to, like, even the show that we have upcoming, which is in a way bigger space, it's an expansion of the same idea. It just has to be done a totally different way because the space has really different proportions.
Do you keep your paying people versus things when you do those productions?
To the extent that it's possible. I mean, it depends a little bit when we're doing things in conjunction with another theater. The theater that we're working with, like, they have a whole house team. We're co-producing a remount of a show of ours, and they have a staff, they have a space. There's, like, we can't, and they have contractual obligations that are super different from the ones that we have. But for the shows we did at the Public, which we rented, the dimensions were pretty similar. We try to, like, frankly, find spaces that have comparable dimensions so that we understand something about how we think the play will work, and that includes how close performer is to audience, how intimate, how not just the the sight lines, but, like, how will this come? How will this feel? How will this be held by the audience? And we really, the Shiva at the Public, where we've done the last couple of remounts, is not that much larger than the Wild Project, so it was a very similar feel. And we gave our little curtain speeches and, basically tried to bring our kind of scrappiness in an enhanced, thoughtful fashion, because it wasn't sort of coming in with 2 days tech. It's like a little bit more like, okay, what did we learn? What worked? How will that work in this venue?
Do you think that the low ticket prices helps you build the audience that you want?
Having a low ticket price is a clear way of limiting risk, I guess, because if you don't have to spend too much on the ticket, I think you're going to be a little bit more
adventurous,
open to whatever it yields. If you've paid $500 for something, you have a little sense of, like, this better satisfy my standards, whatever they might be. Whereas, for $25 or $35, most people will be like, let's see what that is. We've managed to have at least some affordable tickets everywhere we've gone, and that's part of what we've insisted on. Whether you have to be, a little bit thoughtful to find it, but if you look at, if you're on our mailing list, there'll be an affordable ticket price. And if you come to us and say, I can't afford it for that price, it's like, we'll tell you all of the ways we know, like whether it's rush tickets or whether it's a comp or whether it's a barter. I mean, whatever. We'll figure it out. I mean, we want people to see the shows. I think all of us, when we don't get it together to see a show until, like, the very last performance, eat it, go like, okay, I'm gonna have to pay for that expensive ticket because, like, this place has been running for several weeks and I haven't gotten it together. But if you want to see something, I feel like most people will try and make that happen one way or another.
Who do you make the work for? Who do you think of as your audience?
Me. I mean, I have to like it. And I, because we produce everything initially in a pretty limited run in a small space, people will come. So I guess, yeah, I don't think about who I'm making it for. Okay. I'm making it for everybody. I hope they like what I like. But, yeah, I think that actually that's, like, our great freedom is that we don't have to concern ourselves with whether our audience will like something.
How do you define success when you're leading an organization that's devoted to risk-taking?
Morale? I think that if people are excited,
People as an artist, people as an
everybody,
audience. Oh, both,
everybody. I
both.
think that
Uh-huh.
I think you can feel enthusiasm. You can tell when something is like a duty or an obligation or a job, and when people are really excited for something, and and it's really really important to me that people feel like happy and lucky at what I feel happy and lucky most of the time that I get to do what I do, and feel taken care of. Not in some overly elaborate way, but like feel sort of seen and feel like, oh, somebody thought about what I need or thought about making this comfortable or accessible or interesting or challenging. And, I mean, we do a lot of work that has at least some comic element, and like laughter is a pretty organic response. Like people don't fake it.
Do you feel better?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want a little bit of ketamine?
I should not.
You'll be fine. You'll acclimate.
You can also feel how people are responding to something in the lobby, to being in that lobby. You can feel how people are responding in a rehearsal room. You can feel how people are responding in an audience. So, I mean, in terms of the excellence of the work, I think that's probably if I like it. And if I liked making it, and if I think that people liked making it. There's work that we have done. There's lots of work that we've done that I was like, that was pretty good. That came out well. But there are times when it's like everything kind of just tingles a little bit more. There's something about the way people work together that really just sort of met in a way that lifted everything a little higher than any of us could have expected, where just everybody's sort of creative contribution just sort of sang a little bit, and where the audience feels that too, and you can feel like there's just like a little, the wake of that, the ripples after that are just palpable. So that certainly is a certain type of success, but there's very little work that we've done that I don't feel like is successful in most of its goals. There's a few, there are a few that you're like, well, we didn't manage that one.
How has producing in a downtown way changed as you've evolved as a company and you've achieved greater recognition?
When we first started, I remember sometimes thinking about like the different experiences of uptown or institutional or regional theater and of downtown theater. And there were things I liked about both of them. I loved the inventiveness and the sort of efficiency and the surprise and the sort of defying of convention and the immediacy of downtown stuff. And there was sometimes an orderliness to the experience of doing more institutional theater. There's unions, there's rules, there's breaks, there's bathrooms, there's things that, you don't necessarily always have or I didn't always have when I first started doing downtown theater. But as time has gone on, I've found that it's that kind of inventive, that by sheer imagination, I will figure out a solution or a path forward. That sort of remains. I mean, now we have contracts and we have obligations, and there are things that are not as possible to do in a scrappy way. But there's usually a way. There's usually a way of like kind of maintaining some degree of that. We have such a appetite for like figuring how to squeeze something out of what we have around us is really big. It is kind of like why we're still around. And that is sort of always means that we'll be doing more than we actually can totally sustain. But it's kind of like, oh, look, somebody put an extra chair in here. Well, that chair is going to, now perform 5 different roles. There's just, and that is a completely downtown thing. You don't really have much, and you just like make as many things as you can out of what you have, and not the things that anybody is expecting.
When you think about downtown, like the spirit of downtown, experimentation and community and risk, do you think it still exists right now?
Absolutely.
How do you define it? Where do you see it?
I mean, I would say that I mostly see it in people who are younger. I think that now, as like sort of the financial pressure on the institutional model is abbreviating and constraining the possibilities and the opportunities there, that there are these sort of kind of exciting fissures in the overall structure or ecosystem that has existed, and that things are growing up throughout it. I think that I see a lot of young people who are like not. I feel like for a little while I encountered this artists feeling that self-producing was somehow like self-publishing, that it was somehow stigmatized, that it was like, oh, this is a vanity project, instead of like, this is my passion. I want to make this thing happen. I want to make it happen on my terms, and it doesn't matter if it's fancy. And I think now, since so many of those big fancy things are shrinking or
Falling apart.
that people are like, oh, if I want to make this thing, I'm going to make it myself, or I'm going to make it with my friends. And it's it's happening all over, and I think that's that's a shift in the landscape that is exciting, that will make for a much greater diversity of aesthetics and of scale and of like sort of the geography of like where you see things, let alone the kinds of things you see and who's making them. That the sort of the gatekeeping will be less predictable, which is I feel a lot of optimism about that. Whether people can afford to live that way and make things that way till they totally mature as artists.
I don't think they're forming spaces, though. I think they're finding different ways to make their work. In the 90s, we had like this big explosion of spaces.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
But I feel like work is growing, like you're saying, in alternate ways.
Yeah.
Why do you think that happened in the 90s but isn't happening now?
I mean, I think that,
what is the thing that's happening now that's interesting to you?
I think the 70s and 80s in New York were rough enough that there was a lot of space around, and people were game to let artists inhabit them, and artists had figured out ways of getting into those spaces. And I think over the course of the aughts mostly, the value of real estate in New York increased such that like space after space was under way too much pressure financially to continue. I mean, it's all the spaces that we started at are gone, and there are very few left. I think that at least in Manhattan, I think people are doing more stuff in the outer boroughs. I feel like there's more like weird little part-time spaces are showing, like people are being creative about where they do things.
I've been in backyards to see shows in people's apartments again, which is something that happened a while ago and then kind of stopped happening.
Bars.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more site-specific stuff, a little bit more stuff like, on the street, like tours. And then there's some, sort of a new era of presenting spaces. Like people are sort of filling that void more as some of the others have fallen away. And new ones hopefully will keep emerging. I do feel like there are a few like solid like presenters who are making space available regularly and providing people with, whether it's fiscal sponsorship or rehearsal space or whatever. I mean, I think there's like a fabric of resources that have to exist, and are becoming more and more important, for like a whole sort of community of people to take advantage of them.
What do you hope to leave behind for the next generation of theater makers?
A body of work, a body of values, and a little bit of a sort of a sense of like kind of a stone soup sensibility. You know, it's like that you don't need much, but you need to, but you need other people. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, there's no right way of doing anything. I mean, as long as you're kind, and you're transparent, you know, you can do things so many different ways.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you so much for
Of
doing
course,
this, Maria.
of course.
It's a
I
great
feel like
pleasure.
I was a little vague, Kristen.
I don't think you were.
Okay.
But if there's something you want to be more specific about,
No, I
we've
can't
got a
think of
couple more
anything.
minutes. All right. Thanks to HowlRound for broadcasting us, and we hope you'll come back to the next Torches.